Talking TIDF.
Hi all, this is Cameron, one of the co-hosts of Talkin TIDF. A huge thank you to everyone who was able to make it to Taipei this year to take part in the 2026 edition of the Taiwan International Documentary Festival. It was a very memorable 10 days, filled with startling cinema, lively parties, and thoughtful conversation. This is the first of a series of episodes we are releasing as bonus post-festival content, so stay tuned over the coming weeks. Today features an interview with the directors of Colour Ideology Sampling.mov, Karen Cheuk-sze and Kathy Wong. Their film won the Next Generation Award and Taiwan Competition Jury Prize at this year's TIDF. Note that the interview was recorded prior to the festival, so the competition had yet to occur. We hope you enjoy hearing about their working process as much as we did. Welcome back to another episode of Talkin TIDF. This is Cameron.
And I'm Stefanie.
And today we are excited to be joined by the directors of Colour Ideology Sampling.mov. We've got Karen and Kathy joining us. So Karen and Kathy, before you introduce yourselves, we also want to sort of sing your praises a bit because your film has already won a Golden Horse Award for Best Short Documentary this previous year. And then now it will be competing in this year's TIDF. So congratulations and also welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi everyone. I'm Karen from Hong Kong, currently based in Taiwan. Most people know me and Kathy because of our film. We are very grateful that this film has received a lot of comments and a great deal of recognition and attention in Cantonese and Mandarin speaking community, especially in Taiwan and Hong Kong.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Kathy. Yeah, actually Karen said what I want to say, but just one thing to clarify, we're not couples because a lot of people misunderstood, and I really want to try my very best to clarify this every time. But we are just really good friends starting the project. And yeah, we have a very different background. Karen originally graduated from creative media school, and I'm from journalism background. So yeah, and we start working together. That's why we, try to start this film together as well. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that this film is actually your first cooperation? So that's, or how did you do other documentaries together before that?
I can talk a little bit more, and Karen may say something as well if you want.
Okay.
We started working together starting from 2019 during the Hong Kong, the social movement. We both just graduated in 2019 and joined an independent media. We work as colleagues. For the independent media means that we have just a few people, mainly me and Karen, working together. So we actually work together every day at the scene. So we actually worked in very different style because she graduated from a film background, but for me, I'm a journalism background. So
not film background, creative media.
Sorry. I didn't realize there's a difference, but yes, there's a difference. Yes, creative media background, pardon. And yes, and yeah, we actually had a really different style of working together. But it's a very intense work back in 2019 when we need to go out, at the scene every day. So we kind of have our friendship and our work relationship built on that period of time. So also then after that, we moved to Taiwan after all these happened. So together, me first in 2021 and Karen in 2022. And then we actually had to spend a lot of time together, sharing our lives and living together. So that's why we talked a lot about creations, creative works, films and, daily lives, gossips, stuff like that, right?
Yes. Actually, just like what Kathy says that when we were covering the social movement in Hong Kong, we will film in the morning and edit at night. So and publish the updated video the next day. So in a way, I think that that kind of intense workflows really build our chemistry and mutual understanding, and also about our styles because because many people ask that if we argue a lot during making this film, because when a film have two directors, people will always think that they will always have argues. We always have a joke like we don't argue, we just fight. Fight directly.
One
Yeah.
punch and another.
What I think some of that interaction is very apparent even in the film, and I think that's what gives it such a great rhythm because it opens with you two chatting or in dialogue, but it has a kind of confrontational undertone, I want to say. But it's it's very engaging, and I think anyone who's watching, it's the sort of documentary where the moment it starts, you're really pulled in because you can tell that not only are you two interested in the subject that you're talking about, but you both have a slightly different perspective of it. And that sort of is what propels you guys going through it. We will get to the film itself shortly, but I wanted to go back just to that sort of correction that Karen just gave because I'm curious how it might have affected your work. You made that distinction between creative media and film. Could you just give us a quick idea of what creative media means? And that might help us also understand your documentary afterwards.
Actually, in my mind, I think that although I'm working on, for example, documentary or films now, but I always think that if I want to express myself or my opinions or some my artistic idea, I think that a film or documentary is not only ways to express this. We can use a lot of methods. For example, exhibition or some scenes, small scenes or small booklets, and also some mixed media artwork also can work it. Back to these films, actually we are playing a lot of creative ways about color. For example, we will use a lot of scanner effects to show that color is a very complex and complicated term. It's not that easy to understand. Do you have any points to
Me? I think it's yeah, because like to me it's a whole new world to me because as a journalism student, and I know nothing actually about film and creative media when I was in my university life. I was just doing a lot about, working at TV station, knowing documentary as a form of maybe more like news feature stories, videos like what we saw on Al Jazeera, BBC, all these kind of news feature stories. But, and when I met Cheuk-sze back in 2019, the way she made, I would say, video or maybe documentaries at that time, with her, I can, I was like really open up to a new world in a way that how she thinks. For example, when I was like rushing to the front line to document the clashes between the police force and the protesters, and she's the one who, stay at the back and document some really small things that we never thought it was like one of the spotlight of the day. For example, an old lady, picking up some of the rubbish after the protesters. And, she will have a long take, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And I was like, what are you doing here? Like, we need to go over there. They're bombing over there. We need to go over there. But, like she has her own way of filming things. So it's really different. So we actually make a great team because I do the frontline shooting and she did all these small things. And when the things or the footage is put together, it's become a documentary work and a more comprehensive scene of the day that mainly actually mainstream media is leaving out of the day. So we actually capture something that was left out by the mainstream media. So we actually also find the role of ourselves during that period of time because of her background and how we work together.
just interesting memories because at that time she told me that she hates art. She 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 hates the people who study art. Then I was very shocked. Why? And I asked her why, and because she studied journalism, so at that time, in the past, she thinks the world only have black and white, but in the world of art, we have many definition, and we can explain the topics in several way. So she hates that. But after several years, she made a film about color.
Like, like slapping myself partly, like how people changes. But yeah, but like what you said, like I really, really hate art in a way. Like I really hate things that lie between black and white, the gray area, because I don't think it's to me at that moment, at that time, not now, to to be clear, not now, but at that time I thought like, yeah, I know that the facts are the most important thing to be reported to the public, and but what is not the facts, maybe feelings, maybe more how people see, maybe about perspective. This is not the thing that I really care about, and I don't think it's going to help the world to move forward. And what I strongly believe in is only facts. Journalism is the way of helping the world to move forward. But after the social movement and after me being part of the social movement, having a great feelings and maybe we will say trauma or a very heavy experiences when the feelings came after all these facts. That's the moment that I realized, okay, I understand why Cheuk-sze is trying to, or art, what's the use of art to help us to move forward as a person. So it's not only a black and white, but the gray area, actually, we have a lot of things to play with in the gray area.
Well, yes. Actually, I have to say, when I read the title of the film, Colour Ideology Sampling.mov, I thought, no, that's not a film that I want to watch. Sounds weird. But then I had, because I'm a volunteer, a TIDF volunteer, so I had the chance to pre-watch the film. And I was completely thrown. I really have to say it. I don't say it very often, but this film deeply impressed me. And well, first, for a very simple reason, because it is a political film. And these days, where I observe that more and more filmmakers are making films on personal issues, on memories, on family topics, and that's not bad at all, yeah. But I have rarely seen a really political film in the last couple of years. And so that deeply impressed me. And I just thought it was so clever, so smartly done. If I may just mention one example, what I really loved about the film is when you make the Cantonese speakers, the Guoyu speakers, the Putonghua speakers say this is red or, well, it's a Hongsek. And so I just thought that's such a smart way to point at these differences of perception, of political stances, of political color. I'm really happy that you have time to do this interview with us. So really, one of my questions would be, how did you get this? How did this idea evolve? How did you find the format for this film? That's just one of the many questions I would have, but let's maybe start with that one.
At first, this film is not a film. This film is a news feature of a character-driven story. We was working in the independent media I just mentioned, and we follow this character because he seems to have like a contradicting stance, political stance. To be specific, he is yellow in Hong Kong, but he is blue in Taiwan. So this is why we started to film, and what we are trying to do is just to brought out this, how special he is in this time of people. Well, we think people who support democracy in Hong Kong must be supporting DPP in Taiwan. This is just like a simple starting point. But after that, like after filming all these, we found out that we have no idea what was Taiwanese politics about. We are having a very strong stereotype towards all the political stance and all the political figures, and do not have really enough knowledge about political situation in Taiwan. So at that time, after our filming, we are not really confident enough to produce this news feature. And also, we also thought that, okay, if we try to publish this news feature, under that time, there must be a lot of people try to, attack our characters who are having this kind of contradicting political stance. So at that time, we also say, okay, in the sake of, taking care of, I would not say it's an ethical questions, but more like we are reflecting on ourselves, like whether it's appropriate to publish this on the web or on the internet or just on the YouTube channel to let him to face all these, comments and attacks. And what's the use of it? Or like, will it be helpful? What's the meaning of the thing? So after reflecting on this, we think that okay, so we are not going to do this. So we just, leave it alone. And after I actually pursue my master degree in political science in 2021, that's why I moved to Taiwan. And Cheuk-sze moved to Taiwan in 2022 to pursue her master degree in art. So when we started to live in Taiwan, we have more and more sense of a daily lives, and we talk to people, we communicate with Chinese people about politics, about society, and also I gained my knowledge about political science in my university. So that's why we started to, talk about this footages that we had in hand back then. And we think that, okay, maybe we should produce something out of that. Like we do have enough knowledge and we do have some feelings about what is happening here in Taiwan and back in Hong Kong. We have the ability to do that. So that's why we are, trying to rephrase it, or not rephrase it, but to reproduce it in a way, trying to not just to make a character-driven documentary, but a documentary making color itself as a protagonist instead of our character. So we're talking about color and we're talking not about the character. So he himself is not the main point, but color is the main point. It's the thing that I want to discuss. It's more like a subject of a thesis, that characters are more like samples in the thesis. So that's why we have the name like sampling in our film, the name of the film. Yeah.
And actually, in the beginning, we just want to make a frame that makes the Taiwanese and Hong Kong audience can discuss together. Yes, because when we come to Taiwan during our university, and Taiwanese always tell us about Hong Kong, but in their minds, what Hong Kong's like is just 2019. But I think Hong Kong is have many ways to talk. So in the beginning, we just want to have more discussions between Taiwanese and Hong Kong audience. And the color is the best way to discuss this because everybody sees the color actually is the simplest things. But it also can very complicated because it also can political. Yes.
Yeah, and when we came up with the idea, so actually we came up with the idea of the color first, and also why we are doing this film right now is to build a bridge between Taiwanese and Hong Kongers. And that's why actually we just started like that way. Like, okay, so now we gotta put together all these footages that we mentioned about color, and we thought it's related to color during our filming back in 2020, during the presidential elections, while our characters, was going through the whole presidential election in 2020. So we just, list out the footage, we try to arrange all the sequences, and then we discuss how should we structure the film. And that's why we came up with, like, when you see 这是红色, that chapter with different colors. And we actually discussed this kind of the structure at the beginning of the editing. So it's like, okay, so color is the main point, then we structure the film.
Hearing you guys explain that, it's even more amazing because when you're a filmmaker, it's very easy to say, oh, this is what I want to do with my film. But it's very hard to actually execute and follow through and get your audience to go with that. I'll say, as an audience member who did not have that context when I watched it, I first was like, oh, this is a mystery. Why does this man have such confusing political stances? They seem at odds. And so I was going with you guys with that. But then the more you guys went with the color theme, and even the points when you start noticing when especially different political rallies in Taiwan would explicitly reference colors, or when you would bring up different colors and show us what those colors overlay with each other, and even using sort of the hexadecimal numbers, it reminded me of that debate on the internet a decade ago now. The blue dress, is it a black dress or a blue dress? I don't know if you guys remember that. And so everyone is looking at the same picture and saying, no, that's black. No, that's blue. And suddenly I like that crisis is something that, and I feel like this is such a cliche when it comes to filmmaking where it's like, oh, it's, there's a universal message, but it's also super specific. But this is the sort of thing where on the one hand, you're getting at this incredibly specific, incredibly complex intersection of Taiwanese politics and Hong Kong politics. But I think broader audiences will also recognize this crisis that comes when people will look at the same thing and say, this means this. No, it means the completely opposite thing. So I'm just so impressed hearing how you guys just methodically plan that. And it works really, 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 really well. So hats off to you. It's just so exciting to hear you guys talk that way.
Actually, I remember that some audience asked us why we don't use Taiyu for the Taiwanese part, why we don't use Taiyu, but for the Hong Kong part, we use Cantonese but not use English. This is a very interesting question because I think that it depends where are you come from. Because we come to Taiwan as a newcomer, so we come to Taiwan as a newcomer, and so when we talk to Taiwanese, we will use Mandarin. So this is the first impressions for us. So we actually, for our stance, we will not think Taiyu is the language for us to communicate with the Taiwanese for the first impressions. But I really liked this question from our audience because it's something about our identities. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think it's a very smart question. Yeah. I wanted to know why would the key person in your film, like what's his name, Hiroko Wan? I actually don't know this politician before. But I was wondering, why would he have agreed to be featured in this film?
Oh, yeah. Actually, at the very beginning, we approached him as a journalist. So at the very beginning, he can picture that it's going to be a new stories and features after he, documenting his trip to the presidential election in Taiwan. But after that, actually, we didn't publish it. So when we decided we are going to do it again, in 2023, I think the late 2023, we told him that, okay, we are going to make a film again about that journey and that trip. He agreed. So we started making it, but we still, we are quite careful in a way because it's different from what we have told him before. It's a totally different format. So we try to notify him that, okay, we're going to use this scene, and this scene during the editing process to just check on with him, that let him know that we're always doing this. And after the film is done, we are, in the film that we were part of the film. So it's kind of like a different, me and Cheuk-se's stance, what we're talking about is part of the film. So it's definitely going to be totally different from what he was imagining about the film was going to be like. So we were so like, okay, we are really nervous when we started to show him the film, but we were quite shocked and we were quite happy that when after he watched the film, he just said, wait, great, let's do it. And we were like, what? Are you sure? Are you sure that you're okay with that? He said something that we really impressive. He said, I think you guys gave me enough airtime to express myself and express my political sense in the film. And this is your film, so you could express what you want to express. So, and he was totally fine with it.
Yes.
And I think, this is really impressive.
And he also asked us we are free to say whatever we want to say and what we think. And he said that it is freedom, right? Yes. Then we are like, okay. Okay.
It was like, whoo. But yeah, we were, he is a,
He's
everybody.
a very open-minded person, actually. Yeah. And he's a very mature political figures for many years. Even our political stance is different with him, but we are actually very respect him. Yes.
I think that's rare, not just in terms of finding documentary subjects, but even in daily life. It feels rare and rare that you meet someone who very openly and consistently will seemingly occupy what you think are sort of contradictory ideological stances, but they're able to explain how they're not contradictory. I feel like that's a topic I've heard coming up in multiple media ecosystems at the moment, where there's sort of this sense it's not just polarization, but it's sort of viewpoints tend to agglomerate together. And he kept saying things that I don't think I've ever heard anybody say before, whether in Taiwan or Hong Kong. So, and I think even for audience members who might not have the deepest political awareness of what's happened in either Hong Kong or Taiwan over the past 6 years, there's enough stuff going on that I think you'll get pulled in. And I think also the action of how you follow him across, because he's basically making a trip to every party's campaign stop for the Taiwan presidential election back in 2020. So there's another way where it almost reminded me, I mean, it's not really a road trip because it's much more constricted, but it almost is like a road movie where you're going on a journey with someone in this really compressed way. I'm sorry, as a film studies person, I can only make these film, I think, in very filmic terms, but I'm also trying to appreciate the creative media or thinking from, journalistic or other ways of phrasing it. And so it's
I just want to say I really like the word road movie. It's the first person saying that, but yeah, it's kind of romanticized what we are doing, but I like it. Yeah, we are road movie directors. Yeah.
You already mentioned one audience reaction, like asking about the language issue. And we were also wondering about audience reactions here in Taiwan. And also we understand that the film was screened in 2025 in the UK, right? In a festival. Yeah, we would be curious. What were the audience reactions there?
We were holding independent screenings throughout these 2 years after the first film was released and was premiered in Taiwan. And we were having plenty of Taiwanese audiences. But to be honest, it's really hard to summarize because it's really there are a lot of different opinions and comments about the film. But what we find out is really interesting is that people having different political stance watching these films are having different emotions and feelings and takeaway from the film because we do have people who support DPP and we do have KMT supporters to come and watch the film, and their takeaways are totally different. But we always, we're joking about that, but we always long for a fight or an argument, a beautiful battle after our screening, like, the DPP supporters, KMT supporters, maybe having a, political stance fight, but that never happened actually. So, but it's quite impressive how we are really surprised at how the film is working with the audience as well, because even though we have in some of the screening, we have half of the people from Hong Kong and half the people from Taiwan watching the film together, they, actually understand half of the film. So when the Taiwanese audience start to ask, okay, why are you doing this in the film? What does it really mean? And Hong Kong audience just raise up their hand and try to answer the questions. And when the Hong Kong audience tries to say, okay, what does it mean like in Taiwan, blah, 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 and the Taiwanese audience raise up their hands and answer the question for us. So it's kind of like the communication is skewed during the Q&A session sometimes in our screening, which is quite interesting that people start to talk to each other and try to communicate what they think about the film, which is really different. Yeah, and of their their opinion, their backgrounds, and actually that's what we want to do, which is quite interesting. At the very beginning, like our target audience, mainly Hong Kong people and Taiwanese, but we did travel a bit to, as you said, to the UK, to Thailand, and into Korea. We were really surprised that people understands the context of the film, and we were really happy to communicate this kind of the special political landscapes in Hong Kong and Taiwan to people in Asia. But for in UK, like because there are a lot of Hong Kong people moving to the UK, so actually mainly the audience will be people from Hong Kong, so we can hear a lot of opinion from the people who were immigrated to the UK right now, but not really like the locals watching that. But yeah, it's not really surprising because this topic, our target audience, we know that they're kind of like certain, I don't want to call it limitations, but there's certain barriers for people who have no idea what is Hong Kong, what is Taiwan, to watch the film. But we're trying very hard to at least to communicate the film in Asia, especially to some democratic countries who are embracing democratic values, to make more communications and discussions about political landscapes, social change, how should we deal with people how should we communicate ourselves in the social movement, or how should we communicate or avoid polarization maybe in our countries. Yeah, so it's a quite interesting experience.
And also, we are very lucky that we will have some audience from Hong Kong. They will travel Taiwan, especially for this film. Yes, they will buy the flight tickets and tell us the date and ask us to remember to open up a film screening in the independent bookstores for them, and they will gatherings some for example 10 people or 20 people of their friends, and they come to Taiwan together and watch this film. Yes, this is so lucky for us.
Yeah, so I think that's also a really interesting element, sort of getting further into this topic of Hong Kong and Taiwan audiences interpreting it differently, but then also the ways in which documentary screening culture has changed a lot over the past 5 years. And so there's also sort of this idea of not only traveling to see documentaries, but also having to travel with your documentary, what you were just talking about with South Korea and Thailand. And I'm curious, when you're traveling with a film and also having people to travel, I'm wondering if you could just open up even a little bit more about the specificity of watching of your film over and over with your audience, because that feels so different from people just watching a film online. And I think that's something we've been trying to bring up a lot in this podcast, is also the importance of in-person screenings. That's something, obviously, being associated with a film festival, that's something we care about a lot. But I'm also curious how you guys, as directors, how is that in-person watching experience? How has that come to affect you, or sort of maybe shape how you think about your work and maybe even future work?
When I was a university student, there was a small rallies near Yaoma Days in Hong Kong. A small rallies called Green Wave Art Film Platform. It is an independent film space, and they will screen a lot of films from China that couldn't show properly. So at that time, I learned that I can a term about censorship. So I always remember that kinds of feelings when everybody sit together and watch the screen, that they just use the white wall and use the projector, which is the quality is so bad, and to project a films around 3 hour or 6 hours, some very raw documentary from China. So every time when we talk about how to show our film, and me and Kathy always remembers that kinds of experience. So when we work together in a news media company, we also do the same things. We bring our documentary film to some independent space. At that time, they are still have some independent space or bookstores in Hong Kong at that time. So we will bring our own films to show it, to screen it by ourselves. And we also have the experience. We bring our films to the home, to people's home, and show our films on their TV, the television. So I think the feeling is totally different when you watch the films in the cinema. Yeah. So it's totally different. It's not very comfortable, but you will have a lot of deep conversation and discussions. I also want to mention the Hong Kong Independent Film Festival, which is organized by Yang Yiji. Yang Yiji. Many Hong Kong's filmmakers actually also have their insights from these film festivals because at that time they worked very hard to build these platforms, and so every time when make a new film, I also want to join this festival, but so sad that this is over.
Yeah, and I think to us as Cheuk-sze just mentioned, in-person screening is really important to us in a way that it's how we interact with the audience, how we gather together, no matter if filmmakers gathering together or audience getting together, and how we have conversation between audience and the filmmakers, having a real in-person one-on-one meeting is much more better than leaving comments online. It's more like it's not a single output, but it's a two-way mutual communication. Is a way like how to encourage filmmakers to make film and also encourage audience to watch their next film. It's kind of like a relationship if we have a more in-person screening. I'm not sure whether like maybe it's after the pandemic, maybe it's about more and more streaming platforms having right now. People are more used to watching films at home. But to me, I think in person it's the value of how people gathering together, especially we're from Hong Kong. So we do know that sometimes we cannot and we must not, we are banned to get together in a way. No matter it's about the pandemic reason or other reasons, it's really hard for us to get together in person right now back in Hong Kong. So I think, especially we're in Taiwan here, we actually really treasure every chance that we have a group of people gathering together, discussing no matter films, arts, just daily matters, daily lives, what we treasure, the values, what are we happening, what are we facing right now in the world. All these conversations in person are way more powerful of, having a chat room on the internet. And also like we have like a really very impressive experience. Like well, I was not there, but I was quoting Cheuk-se's during the Golden Horse Award. That was kind of like the first few screening of our film, because it's a political film and the audiences are having a really great reactions. They are laughing, shouting, and then they were like, you can see, you can hear, people wiping tears at the end of the film. And when you feel that in the cinema, it's kind of like really powerful to the filmmaker. Like, okay, my film, it's working in a way that we are connecting with people and we are touching people's hearts and we are moving people in a way. So I think like their reactions to me and the audience reaction to the audience themselves are really interesting as well. It's an experience like Cheuk-se's. I remember when she like went out the cinema, she called me, you know what, Kathy, I was like in a Mayday rock and roll concert just now. Like people are, shouting. And I was like, wow, what? No way. They're shouting like all these kind of things. And I was like, wow, I was so regretted I was not there. And I think it's also I think it also really tells the value of in-person screening right here. Like it's an experience. So you can never get an experience alone. It's about togetherness to me. Yeah.
When I finished watching your film, I thought, wow, this film should be shown at every high school in Taiwan, at every university. And it's certainly one of my top recommendations for the TIDF. No, honestly, I really like this film. And I was just wondering, are you working on a new project?
No.
No, what?
Yes. Actually, we Kathy have a lot of new projects.
As a producer.
with many talented filmmaker, and our next project actually is about visual impaired poets in Hong Kong. Actually, I have been working on this project for almost 8 years. Yes, and Kathy will be the producer of this project. And actually, I started to film this impaired poets. Actually, that at that time I was still in university. Yes, through his story, I want to explore more what it really means to see, especially in today's world, which is we will feel very uncertain, and in some country even unstable. So we often feel like we cannot see things clearly. So during his story, I want to keep asking what what does it really means to see?
Yeah, this is a really great project. As a producer, I must promote it. and yeah, and actually, to be honest, it's not easy after making Colour Ideology Sampling.mov, because to be honest, we cannot find any kind of resources in Hong Kong to make a film, and we did not want to apply for we are quite limited in a way. So we were trying really hard to work as hard as we can to make this film work and to also, support our lives in a way, but not. We are really working hard on finding resources to complete a film, especially it's a feature film, and it's gonna be like Cheuk-se's first solo feature. So we hope that it's gonna be out really soon, but we still need some time for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it because I think documentary that really gets at ambiguity, gets at the gray. I know that Kathy, you were saying you didn't like the gray, but I guess you kind of got won over towards the end. But that's the documentary that I think is so needed right now in the world, just given easy narratives and easy answers are too easy to come by in a way right now. And it's almost scary how that leads people into very scary directions. And so having a film being able to bring people together and think about something really complex. And so I know you said you're maybe sometimes you were disappointed you didn't get more conflict during your screenings, but I think it's also amazing that people from different political ideologies in Taiwan were able to watch these things and talk about these things, because it definitely resonated with me in sort of every subsequent year that I've spent in Taiwan and learned about the complexity of overlapping and sort of different political positions, and how you might think that because someone speaks a certain language or acts a certain way or is of a certain generation that they must be of a certain political party, and then lo and behold they're not of that political party. I think that's something that we need to think about. And I think sight, though, the idea that you're really interested in sort of pushing against when people see, I think sight is the thing we assume because we see something that we know something. And so I'm so excited to hear that that's a direction that you guys are going even further with. That's really, really cool.
I would like to ask a question that we ask all our guests. Well, we would like to ask you for two recommendations for the films that you would recommend with the upcoming TIDF.
Because we are from Hong Kong, so of course, I will recommend some documentaries from Hong Kong, which is Come Practice. This is made by an independent filmmaker, Rick Wong. He's a very young filmmaker, and also another film, Map of Chases. Yes, these two films will screen together. Also, the director, the filmmaker of Mass of Chases, Chen Haozhen, is a very talented filmmaker in Hong Kong for many years. She have a lot of great documentary work, and this is her new documentaries for this year's TIDF. And I also want to take a moment to recommend a film that's made by my great friends in Taiwan. It's called Papers, Houses, and Horses. It's directed by my best friend, Andrew. Yes, it is a very talented Taiwanese filmmaker, and he play a lot of concepts about documentary and fictions. So please go to the cinema and enjoy it.
Texas recommend all the films that I want to recommend, so I'm gonna pick something else. Just to continue with like Paper Houses and Horses, like a kind of like film to challenges the boundaries between fictions and documentary that we always like talking about worldwide, like what is documentary and the complexity of documentary. I would recommend there's a unit called like the Stranger Than Documentary. There are three combinations of different shorts. These are the shorts that I can, some of the shorts I watched it before in some of the festivals, and I think they are really, really inspiring in a way, especially for filmmakers if you want to try to go beyond documentary, but you still have a great deep love about documentary, and you want to try to break through in terms of forms, I think these documentary shorts will help a lot. And also, to see what the other filmmakers are trying to break through around the world. So I would, yeah, to us. And also, sorry to be really greedy, but I'm really looking forward to the Palestine unit, focus program Palestine and its archiveness archive, because Palestine is also well known of archiveless. But having all these archives gathered together is a really, really precious chance to watch all these precious footage that we cannot really easily to assess these footages. And I think what we are facing around the world right now, we know how many difficulties and challenges are these people facing. And I think it's also a responsibility to, know more about their histories and to be part of and stand with them in a way to gain more knowledge and stand with them in this complicated world. So I think, yeah, this is also the thing that I'm going to recommend to everybody.
And also, TIDF will have a special events about the green team, 绿色小组.
Yeah,
Yes,
also.
it is also very, you all need to go. Yes.
Like we're recommending the whole program of TIDF, everybody.
I remember that they also have the online screenings about the green teams, so just enjoyed it.
That's actually a great reminder. Thank you. That even for our listeners who aren't able to make it to TIDF this year, there will be screenings offered online for a couple months afterwards, especially for some of the Taiwan television documentaries and some of the Green Team documentaries. So please see those there. And also, if you aren't able to see the other films at this year's TIDF, hopefully you will be able to catch them somewhere else. Stefanie, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just thanks for the recommendations. I will certainly watch those films that I haven't seen yet. Actually, I also watched Compact Disc, and it's a great film. And well, for the focus section on Palestine, we just had a podcast with one of the curators of this program and with Chen Wanling. So if you are interested in that focus program, then just maybe listen to this podcast and you will get some more information on the background. And I just would like to thank Kathy and Karen very much. Thanks a lot for having joined us. And it was absolutely delightful to have had you here and to hear how you made this film.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's a delight to have you guys, and best of luck not only at the festival, but also with your next project.
Thank you.
Thank you.